I'll knock you right in your nose.
I didn't touch you.
Earl Weaver was stubborn, insulting, unruly, and combative. But most of all, Weaver will be remembered for being a brilliant baseball mind who won a lot. Weaver spent 42 years immersing his life in baseball before walking away as one of the most successful skippers of all time. His reign over the most successful franchise of the 1970s included 6 AL Eastern Division titles, 4 American League pennants, and a World Series championship in 1970. But beyond Weaver's many managerial accolades, he was best known for his run-ins with his longtime nemesis, Major League umpires.
You're here for one specific reason.
What's that, Earl?
Jeff
Ah, you're full of
He was going to fight for what he felt like was right and what he was going to fight for his ground.
She's been great to get me out.
Earl, you run yourself, Earl. You run yourself. You hit me.
It's like dealing with your wife. You know, when Earl Weaver came out to yell at an umpire, it was like, oh my God. He nagged at him like you can't believe it.
Yourself. You're here, and this crew is here just to us. Yeah. Boom.
The language was rather spicy, you might say.
While it's not an official stat, Weaver was ejected from more than 90 regular season games. 3 times he was ejected from both ends of a doubleheader. And in 1969, he was ejected from Game 4 of the World Series for arguing balls and strikes.
He had to turn his hat around so he could get in the umpire's face, because if he left the bill out, he was going to hit the umpire.
Piling dirt on home plate, walking off the field with a base, and verbally assaulting umpires was all part of the act.
Kicking and screaming, Earl Weaver quickly became public enemy #1 amongst Major League umpires. But Weaver wasn't just one of the most entertaining skippers of his era. He was, without question, one of the most successful.
Weaver's managerial style, and thus his team's identity, was often best phrased as pitching fundamentals and 3-run home runs. Involved in every meticulous detail about the Orioles organization, Weaver sculpted his teams on defensive fundamentals and preached patience at the plate.
Weaver believed that fundamentals were the most important advantage they could have. And so while other teams were taking batting practice by the hour after hour after hour, the Orioles had everybody over there with Weaver screaming at them about which base to cover every bunt play, every pickoff play, every cutoff play, every signal you could relay.
I don't think there was a greater student of the game. His ability to pick 25 guys when he left spring training was probably the best thing that Earl ever did as a manager.
Earl got the most out of his players, and what he would do, he would recognize what your skills and abilities was, what you're capable of doing, and he would put you in a position to be successful.
Earl was a chemist, mixing and matching his superstar and bench players to produce the perfect product on the field. A managerial pioneer, Weaver perfected the use of advanced scouting, using statistics to create favorable matchups for both his batters and his pitchers.
He knew if you had good statistics against a certain pitch, you were going to play that night. If you didn't, it didn't matter what you were doing. You weren't going to be in that lineup.
Winning to Weaver wasn't out-managing the competition, rather adjusting to the ebb and flow of the entire Major League schedule, managing to his strengths. Getting the most out of all 25 spots on the roster became known as the Weaver Way, and it worked.
To know who's in the Hall of Fame.
Oh, you're going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Know it.
Why?
You
For World Series?
You know it.
You're going to be in the Hall of Fame?
You know it. I've won more than I've lost, kid.
No, no, you haven't.
Games, count games.
Weaver's contempt for the umpires was generally mutual, but over 17 seasons of managing, Weaver's Orioles won 1,480 games. And in 1996, 10 years after Weaver walked away from the game for a second time, he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. And in classic Earl Weaver fashion, he had a message for the umpires.
Now, counting balls and strikes and close plays on the bases, they must have made over 1 million calls while I was managing. And except for those 92 times I disagreed, they got the other ones right.
Beyond the thousands of wins, ruckus ejections, and battles with his players, Earl Weaver was a teacher. It is he that's credited with moving Cal Ripken Jr. from third base to shortstop. He was a pioneer in a game that's now largely driven by statistics. 6 Oriole legends are enshrined in Cooperstown, and it's no mistake that Earl Weaver had his stamp on all of them. Later in life, Weaver joined the broadcasting ranks and retired to Florida, where days at the beach were a stark contrast from his fierce arguments on the field. Earl leaves behind his wife, Mariana, 3 children, and 1 stepdaughter.